One more thing.
One more thing. One more thing.
Welcome to another episode of One More Thing, and I'm joined by four awesome people. Together they are known as Club Glow. We've got Borai, we've got Denham, we've got LMajor, and we've got Manifesto. This is going to be awesome. It could be quite chaotic with all five of us chatting on Zoom, but I think it's going to be amazing. I want to know the Club Glow story, because you've all got such interesting backgrounds, and you overlap and intertwine and weave in different ways, and you've come together for the first time actually as a kind of production outfit, even though Club Glow has been a thing for quite some time, but you've just put out your first kind of productions together. I want to know your origin stories, the Club Glow origin stories. And I don't even know, do one of you normally take the lead on this type of thing when you're being interviewed together as one big mob, or where are we going to start with this? Because there's a lot to tell, isn't there?
I think it starts more with Perry and Boris. I think them guys were guys who's kicked it off.
We can do the origins, and then you can do the next steps.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it started really as an outlet for us, because all of us were sort of putting out the similar music. We were all sort of chatting to each other, making similar sounds, but none of us were all in a similar situation where nobody was signing our music, no one was playing our music on radio. We were really struggling to be heard and for an outlet. So it sort of was born of a necessity for us to have something to play around with and control and do what we wanted to do, how we wanted to do it. And yeah, it birthed from sort of me and Boris collaborating and making a full rave tape. And, by the end of that sort of cycle, we were like, cool, we want to keep the full control of this. We like how it sounds. We don't want anyone to interfere. So we were like, let's make a label, like a fake label. And we pressed it up onto some tapes because we couldn't afford to do vinyl. And it just sort of snowballed from there, really.
Wow. So it's almost the curse of being unclassifiable, really, which is the most exciting thing as an artist, really, to make whatever you want to make and have that kind of freedom and not be limited. But that comes with a curse then, because labels, like you're saying, not being able to be signed and stuff like that, or I guess labels not knowing where to fit you, really. So people, the curse of the modern age, not being able to classify people, really.
I don't think breaks was as fashionable back then as it is now as well. I remember sending a few mixes off to radio stations and tunes, and people were like, we're not really doing this at the minute. And now everyone's doing the breaks thing. So I think it was just on the cusp of when the breaks thing started to become popular.
Yeah, that's exactly it, really. It was both. I mean, certainly from mine, Perry's point of view, I was certainly sending demos out and getting no reply, or getting we like these, but they're not really right for the label. I had so many of those. And then when Perry came calling, he basically hit me up. He sent me an email saying, I heard one of your tunes. I really like it. I've done this. Do you fancy writing some stuff together? And I was like, yeah, all right. I quite like what you've done. I think it was what was it? I think it was a Foot Crab remix, Alison Groove Foot Crab. And Denham did a cheeky bootleg remix of it, which Alison actually put out and put up and supported. And so I'd heard that because I know Tony. And so when he came knocking, I was like, oh, it's these boys. Oh, okay, cool. I like what they're doing. I like the sound. I like what's up. He seems like a nice guy. Okay, cool. Let's write some tunes together. And like Perry said, it just worked. And we were loving what we were doing. And then we came up with this idea for this rave cassette tape. And that was it. It was okay, cool, let's do it. We can't do vinyl, but let's do a cassette tape. And I think it was Perry's idea for the cassette. And I was like, that's great. And once we had something to aim towards, we could kind of finish the rest of the tracks and get it out. And then again, like Perry said, we completed that. By the time we got to the end of that process, people started to check what was going on. We'd already got Nick involved because he'd done the design for the tape cassette, and we knew that we wanted to carry on. And so that was well, maybe we can bring some more people in. So we've got, there's me, there's Denham Audio. Who else? Well, we've got Nick. We're loving his tunes, and it's he's coming on board. Fantastic. Is there anyone else that we like that we could maybe approach? And it was Perry that suggested LMajor to me, Louis. And I was and I'd actually come across his work before, and was very impressed, and was actually a little bit like, oh God, like, oh no. I like, when you hear a track, it's like he's got the same idea as me, but he's just done it better. Like, oh, okay. And then it was like, well, no, like, actually, there's not many of us doing this, and there's no harm in reaching out to him and chatting to him. And actually, he was booked. I did an in-store at a what was it, Container Records, for a release I had with one of their in-house labels, and the guy running the shop, which is now not trading anymore, I think it might be online, but they were in Pop Brixton, I think. And he said, look, we're going to do an in-store release day, and I've invited this guy LMajor to come and play some records and support. And I was like, oh, brilliant. Like, I've actually come across this guy, I'm loving his work, and I get a chance to meet him. And Perry was already talking to me about, like, maybe let's approach him about Club Glow stuff, and would he be up for it? And once we met, it was like the deal was sealed. Within 5 minutes of meeting Louis in Container Records, we chatted, and it was instant that we were both like, bing. and we both like, it was like, oh, I really like your tunes, man. Like, it was kind of lovely. So after that, we, a little bit of backwards and forwards, and emails and all of this, and let's start something. We've got this. We by this point we'd come up with the idea of the name Club Glow, and the tape had come out. So then it was like, yeah, wicked. And Louis, to our amazement, turned around and was like, yeah, wicked. I'm totally up for getting involved. And that was that's the next stage, which is about essentially hand it over to Nick and Louis.
I think Perry hit me up first. Actually, he hit me up on Facebook and was like, oh, I really like your tunes. I'm doing like a rave label with my mate, and we just put out a tape. Do you want to check it out? And I checked out the tape and was like, yeah, this is sick. Really, really liked it. And then he mentions like they were thinking about expanding the collective and wanted to know if I wanted to get involved. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, I'm up for doing some stuff. And then shortly after that, he said that Club Glow were going to do a follow-up tape, and told me that I was going to be one side and Manifesto, Nick, was going to be the other. And I was like, yeah, I'm well up for it. And that's how Volume 2 came about, basically. Yeah.
I did try to sell him a tape first, though. You forgot that.
You did. You sold it. You hustled me. You were like, yeah, we've only got a couple left. Like, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll buy one. I didn't regret it. It was a fucking sick tape. So yeah.
I mean, they're an investment now. I've only got one.
They're going for a lot on Discogs.
Yeah.
Hey, go on.
Yeah, I think, what was it, 50-60 quid last time?
You've got a little stash up behind you, Nick. I can see them from here.
I've only got one of the pink ones. I've only got
yeah, no, I've only got one pink one. That's the thing. It's like the first one was the pink one, and I've got a couple of the other ones and that, but I've only got one of the pink one, and it's like I'm saving that. No one gets that.
That's your retirement fund. If all else fails.
Yeah. And the memories.
I love the tape factor though, because it taps into the whole kind of tape pack, and obviously it was a means to an end. You couldn't afford to do vinyl, and vinyl is pretty screwed. Even back then, there was quite a long waiting list and stuff like that. And the whole industry was kind of, as the major labels were getting involved in vinyl and stuff, so to jump on tapes, was a means to an end, but also taps into the whole kind of spirit that you guys are embodying anyway with raves and tape packs and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, man. Like, my background is I'm a drum and bass raver, so like all my early experiences of drum and bass were like consumed through via tape packs. You know what I mean? So I've still got loads of my old tapes. I still listen to them. So I still love cassettes.
Go on. I mean, that was how you found out about stuff, especially when you were underage, or you lived, I was living in South Wales. So it was tape packs that we, that's how we found out about things, and how we found out about MCs and learned MCs bars and stuff like that were through tape packs, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Go on. He's got his tape.
Nice.
Brilliant. So how about you, Nick?
Yeah, I was there from the inception, really, but I wasn't working on the tracks. Obviously, I was making beats like separately, and I think it was around the time I was putting out a couple of jungle records, but not a lot. Like, it was, again, we weren't releasing much music, any of us. Perry asked me to get involved with the design because I was doing quite a lot of that stuff, and my style is kind of in that rave aesthetic. You know, I was always inspired by Dreamscape and Helter Skelter and all the old bomber jackets and flyers and everything like that. You know, it was a big part of what got me into being a designer from the age of 14. So yeah, we did the tape, which was like a wicked little project to work on. Jumped in for the second tape, did the beats with Louis, as we said, like, and it just kind of snowballed from there, really. And like, we kind of developed like a bit of an identity that was going back to that sort of old 90s rave aesthetic and sound, but also like it was always in our heads to push it forwards. We wanted to make sure that we weren't just regurgitating the stuff that had been done before, and actually like try and move the culture on a little bit. And, you know, we weren't surrounded by it. There wasn't many people doing it. Obviously you had your the older DJs and people that were kind of flying the flag a little bit for what was done in the 90s and still playing that sort of music, but didn't feel like there was anyone making like hardcore or breakbeat stuff anymore, really. So yeah,
there's a couple of labels on the side, like, and there's, you guys overlap. What I'm really excited about is the points where you could have almost met or collaborated in the past, like West Norwood Cassette Library, E-Beams, even like kind of Tor, Skin Teeth's label and stuff like that. There are people on the peripheries that you've all been loosely connected with or rubbed shoulders with or released on, where, you know, it's kind of, this is the point where your stars have aligned though, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have to send love out to all of those guys. Like Bob at WNCL supported all of us, put out our music. Ned's a great guy. Like the E-Beams, me and Perry have done, I think Boris as well, done releases on E-Beams. Like, yeah, there's and as I guess like over the nearly 5 years since we started Club Glow, we've seen more labels sort of not jump on it, but the sound has crept into a lot of other areas. And I'm not saying we should be credited for that, but it's just interesting how music goes in those sorts of cycles, and I guess we kind of hit it on the right time, more or less.
Yeah, or just ahead of the time, really. And I've always thought that kind of breaks at the kind of has been the melting pot, and not at a rigid tempo as well. That's the meeting point where you can throw anything into it. That was the beauty of jungle, wasn't it? Really, that you could just throw any samples into a breakbeat and just put your influences into that kind of melting pot, really. And breaks, certainly at kind of a more houseier tempo, has allowed any kind of it creates that kind of junction where you can go in any direction, and it creates that excitement, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Like we're talking about drum and bass earlier. I think drum and bass has always sort of been its own entity because of the tempo, and jungle as well. But yeah, as you say, we were making stuff around 140, 130, and then people can fit that into their techno sets, their house sets and stuff. Do you know what I mean? So it creates a little bit more of a melting pot. So I think like, yeah, that tempo, writing stuff for that tempo has definitely helped sort of expand the sounds to people who might not necessarily have heard it before, you know, or been exposed to it.
Yeah, definitely. That's been the beauty and the curse of drum and bass in that way. That kind of rigid tempo has created this kind of loyalty and this fierceness amongst fans, but it's also created these really rigid boundaries that artists have been trying to get away from ever since, really, in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. There's another thing I really noticed as well, because, you know, I'm like Louis, I'm a little older than the other two guys. So I have a kind of an experience of, for want of a better term, back in the day, right? So I've seen how the scene and the kind of, for want of a better term, politics within those scenes, you know, us producers and our peers, how we all discuss and talk about those genres. And one of the things that I've noticed, and it's quite evident, is that the amount of blending you're getting now between different genres. It's like, it really used to be really tribal. Like if you were in one genre, you were in those lanes and you didn't really go out of it. People who listened to jungle, a bit later than that, but people who listened to certain genres didn't listen to other genres and would be quite like, I don't like that. Like, you know, the whole garage versus, you know, everyone else and this kind of thing. Whereas now it's like the people are much more open to just listening to music. Doesn't really matter what the genre is, as long as the vibe is right. And I think that has brought this, like, certainly for me, this return back to the hardcore days where, like you're saying, it was this melting pot. You could chuck everything in. I've said it a few times. It's like I've likened this breakbeat scene back to the early days of the dubstep scene, which I likened back to the early days of the drum and bass and jungle scene, which is it was completely open. You can just add your own, a bit of jazz here, a bit of that here, some of that, change the tempos even, and it doesn't matter. DJs now will just play what they like, and people will support that. And it's been really helpful, I think.
Yeah, I think that tribalism was related to vinyl, really, and you only had a budget. You know, like I wanted to buy bits of everything, but I could only spend £30 a week on vinyl. So I had to buy Breaks and Garage because that was all I could afford. You could buy like 5 or 6 records, so you couldn't buy, otherwise you were limiting yourself. And I think it was the format that kind of created that. And also like digging and finding out and researching about the music was a lot harder. Nothing was in your face. So you had to really kind of invest, didn't you, in finding things out.
No internet, right? Because one of the things about when I was growing up is you got into the genres that your friends were into. And it was very difficult to get in or be into something that everyone around you isn't into. Like certainly at school and growing up, because and you have to really dig, and people did and do. But again, it's like now you can just, the internet shows you everything. So now
didn't even know what half the MCs or DJs looks like back in the day. You'd turn up and you didn't know who anyone was or anything. You just heard them on a tape, and it would take you like, I don't know, sometimes you'd know a tune from a tape and you'd be like, what is that tune? What is that tune? It would be like years until you finally found out what it actually was, you know, because you only had the cassette. None of them had track listings. There was no internet or anything. So yeah, it was a lot harder to find information out.
Definitely. But I mean, on the flip side then, Nick and Perry, you're a bit younger then, so you've come in, I guess some of that is probably alien or fabled to you guys. You came in on a different kind of starting point, really, isn't it?
For me, there's some of it that resonates. Like I left London when I was 14 and I was very into grime, and I moved to Nottingham where it didn't exist. So I used to listen to radio, DAB radio. I used to listen to Kiss FM on a Monday night because that was the only way I could like listen to the grime show on a Monday. And I used to tape stuff off when I was a kid, I used to tape stuff off the radio and like put them in my Walkman. So there was elements of that I was familiar with, but even as the internet started to become a bit more prominent, there was a big scene that me and Nick were probably a bit more sort of relatable to, where you listen to radio shows like Hessel, Swamp, and they'd be playing all these unreleased, unknown songs that would then appear on these YouTube channels as rips, and like it's still unidentified. It's like that new culture of, you know, sort of not digging, but like finding and trying to, you know, when is this coming out? Who is it? Like, what is it? And just listening to the same 3-minute YouTube clip for like 4 months straight until it inevitably never comes out anyway. Like that's the sort of played a big part in sort of the musical journey for me as well when I was at uni. Just just all those YouTube channels, these old rips.
That was definitely uni days for me, but even before that, I was living in Sussex when I was like a teenager and in my early 20s, and I was like going to free parties and I was buying records, and I was just heavily into drum and bass at the time. Like it was just solid. So a lot of what Boris and Louis are saying resonates with me, because I was going to drum and bass raves and like hearing tunes that didn't come out for 3 years, and you'd go to the record shop first thing on Saturday to try and pick up the white labels. Yeah, it was probably fully on the tail end of it all, but it was still part of that culture at the time, I think. Like, it's definitely informed the way that I view music and the way that I've approached it over the years. But yeah, I was a child in the 90s, so I missed all that.
Like the journey to get to making breaks and rave was sort of stemmed from this whole YouTube digging culture of like, what is this song? Going on the rabbit hole until I stumbled across 90s tunes, or like, oh, this is amazing. Like, what is this stuff? And then, you know, the algorithm starts chucking up all sorts of amazing songs that I've never heard before. And then you start seeing documentaries about the 90s, and it's just this whole culture that's so fascinating that I was 1-2 years old, like in the 91. And there's just a different element or feel about it all, where no one's taking themselves too seriously. Everybody's having fun. Everybody's just, you know, peace and love and all that, like the cliche, but but you know, and you can see and you can feel it. And that's kind of the pivot from when I was making sort of UK bass type music to making break stuff and just sort of enjoying it a lot more and just having fun with it. That's really when, for me, it started to see like a growth in what I was doing, as well as like the output and the audience as well. And obviously leading into Club Glow.
Yeah. And one of the interesting kind of meeting points there was like, this stuff that you've done with Mark Archer, Alternate, that's kind of like, that's the perfect circle there of that kind of inspiration hitting the right spot really and resonating with the right people and kind of creating that loop, if you like.
I think we've all been quite fortunate, especially for Club Glow as a collective, that we've been recognized by a lot of the older people, and they support us in what we do. They're not thinking we're rehashing or copying them. They're really supportive and even involved in what we do. We had Foul Play do a DJ set on New Year's Eve. I did a remix for Mark Archer. I know a few of the boys are quite close with Sai from Too Bad Mice. So like there's really a nice relationship with the old school and the new school of artists. It doesn't feel like there's the gatekeeping or anything like that. Like, it feels like quite a nice sort of mentorship and supportive relationship between us lot.
Yeah, I think we've just reached a beautiful spot with Generations, full stop, really. This is the first time in electronic music history where you've got people pushing 60 and kids at 16 all releasing like valid, relevant music. And that age gap has never been that wide before. And I think certainly from coming from a drum and bass background, you would see kind of the older generation, there would be a little bit of kind of filtering out or keeping people, there was a kind of I'm trying to think of the right way to phrase this, but gatekeeping, as you say, really, and quality control. But there isn't that anymore now. You see people at a pioneer stage, kind of in their 50s, welcoming in this new generation. And I don't think we've never had that in electronic music, because it's never, it's this age that it is now. It's never been this old before. I mean, are you guys finding that as well, in terms of kind of just, the unity between generations then, really?
Yes. I mean, I've really noticed it just with people contacting us for either, messages or come through Club Go or at gigs. It's like we get the young ones, but we also get the older ones. And that's amazing to me, because, of course, I'm not, we didn't get into this to try and please all the people that were releasing records back in the early 90s, right? We got into it to please our peers, ourselves, those up and comers. But to have that, like Perry's saying, recognition from some of these names of people who I just consider absolute legends, who are coming to us not to say you're ripping us off or what you're doing, but with love and respect and support and mentorship and advice, is kind of mind-blowing. And no, I think
like a lot of them guys are just gassed that it's come around again. They're just really happy that it's still going strong and didn't just die out. They're like, I think they just love it, seeing like a whole new generation of people vibing to that sound. Like, I love going to raves and you see people like fresh out of uni from like 18 all the way up to people like in their middle years. Do you know what I mean? Just all together enjoying the same type of music. It's sick, man. I love it.
You see it at our the Club Glow parties we've got on as well. Like, there's such a mix in audience of like older heads, younger crew, like people that are we've had like Foul Play. John Morrow came to one of our parties just on a whim. Like, he wasn't even playing; he just came to the show.
I was on the door when he came in. I was like, "Oh, hello."
So we've got that level of like support that ranges from the younger sort of university crew, the first ever rave crew, to people that have been doing it for decades, and we strike a note with all of them, which is great.
Yeah,
we're doing something accessible.
It's quite relevant. I won't say who it is, but I got a very, very, very nice message on Instagram last night from an absolute legend of the scene who was literally messaging me to tell me how much they were into Club Glow, into what I was doing. They just played my track of one of their latest radio station. And, he was incredibly nice about about me and Club Glow and everything. And it was kind of made my night.
I think I got that message as well.
Yeah, oh yeah. And I don't think, you know, like I'm saying.
Yeah, we'll got into him today.
What's going on? Where's my message?
Oh, you'll get one, I think. Don't worry.
He's a G. He's a G.
But I used to love that about when I started going raving in like 95, 96. There was always the older people there were the most intriguing people, like, you know, the people in their 30s or 40s, or they certainly looked it. They might have only been in their late 20s, but when you're a teenager, everybody looks really old. But it's just like, you know, what's your game? How come you're still here then? And it was almost like they were like beacons of hope, like, right, cool. This isn't a little thing that I'm going to be doing for a couple of years as a kid. I can actually spend a lifetime in this music and this culture. And that gives me goosebumps now. Like, those type of people are the reason why I'm still here now in my 40s. Like, you know, it's the age range which creates that kind of exciting vibe, I think, of any club night, really. And Nick, you're involved with Rupture and Release with Rupture. And I kind of, you know, I find that with Rupture, they're one of those nights where, you know, there are people there who are, you know, just turned 18, and there are people there who make me feel young. And I love that. They are my favorite nights because it's everybody's welcome there, you know, and I think that's really important, isn't it?
Truly, like Rupture is a real great example of like someone that's created an amazing community around a club night and a label. And whenever you go to those events, like, you are part of that and you can feel it. You see the same faces, like you say, young and old. It's just a beautiful place to be. And like, before I started working with Indy and Dave, like, I was just going to the nights, like partying. Just for me, there was no better example of like jungle drum and bass. Like, I think I must have stopped going to those types of events for a long time because I kind of fell out of love with D&B when it got kind of jump up, and I don't know, like the sound just wasn't really like aligning with me for a while. And then when I found Rupture, I was like, oh wow, there is a night for this stuff and it's sick. So yeah, like I've got all the love for them guys. Rupture's great.
Brilliant.
Big up Indian dubs, man. Big up Indian dubs.
We love Rupture. We love Rupture. Like, legends.
Brilliant. How about your nights then? Take me back to the first club Glow Light. Was it always going to turn into an actual club, or was that a bit of a kind of, wow, okay, we've turned it into a physical event, because it was a kind of almost like a make-believe label, really, or like, you know, a kind of brand for you guys to create this project on it? You know, you didn't really know that it was going to turn into an actual club, did you?
I think with anything that we've done over the last 5 years, it's just been the natural progression of something. Like, we was never going to start a label, then we started one, and it was on tape, and then we was going to be a one-off, but then we decided to, you know, do another one. And I think with the party side of things, it was addressing an issue we were all having, which was we aren't playing out as much as we'd like to, so we'll put a party on. And we did, you know, we tried and found a venue, and we managed to get Peckham Audio, who, you know, they're amazing to work with. We're willing to take a chance on, you know, 4 of us putting on our first ever club night in London, you know, an unknown entity. And I think it sold out, and it was insane that there was people there, such a mixed bag, like we were talking about earlier, and just it really sort of cemented that we have something that people are enjoying, you know, not just from a consume it in their room sort of thing, like they can enjoy it in the club space as well. And we're developing our relationship with Peckham Audio. They've given us the opportunity to do it, so we want to keep that sort of partnership sweet. So we've done a couple of shows now. I think we did one after the pandemic, which was us 4 again, and that was again insane. And then we did New Year's Eve, which was incredible.
New Year's Eve was mental.
Brilliant.
From a promoter perspective, it was like the perfect New Year's Eve party, but from just a punter, it was amazing. Like, just to be in the crowd with everybody, just to have fun. And then we've got our next one in a couple of weeks, actually. We've got AK Sports, who did the 3rd Club Glow tape with us.
Yeah.
Boris as well. And then we've got Prisma from India, who me and Nick met when we went on tour in March. So he's over for, I think, a month or 2. So got him involved. He's a wicked DJ.
Like Perry was saying, just initially born out of a desire to want to play together in a night. We were getting individual bookings, but we wanted to do Club Glow as a thing. Yeah. And so the thing was, yes, let's put a night on. Let's just do it ourselves. And in some way we can prove to others that it could work. So we did that, and it was great. And the other thing that I thought was brilliant was it ended up being quite a lot of people's last party before lockdown.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people brought those memories with them into lockdown. So Club Glow was quite fresh in their minds. And I think it helped us whilst we kind of scrabbled to work out what it is that we're going to do through this kind of period that we don't really know, where everything that we plan to do now can't happen. You know, we all of us were looking at all of our gigs that we'd managed to wangle, and some of them were coming in, just cancelled one after another. And you know, what do we do? And I think we sat down and had a chat about it, and talked about the fact, well, let's just carry on. We're all at home. We've all got studios. We can all make music. So, okay, we can't do the nights like we were planning, but let's see if we can, you know, carry on releasing and let's not stop that and our plans, and which is what we did. And we moved from the club nights, and during the pandemic period, I think that's when the first vinyl record,
it was
the first EP. Yeah. We sorted that out kind of essentially in the middle of lockdown. Because we decided, instead of to put it on hiatus, let's just go for it, because people are at home, they want things to listen to. You know, if you've got lots of time, music is a great thing to pass your time, whether it be making it or listening to it. So yeah, and so then we moved into vinyl records, which was the next bit, the exciting
bit. Another bit that you never expected to do.
No. Never expected to do it.
Also, like, with the clubs disappearing, we put a lot of our energy into our radio show as well. So like, we had that sort of not ticking over, but we were doing that on a monthly basis. But that was the only outlet for us to be club focused, or, you know, showcase what we were about. And I think, again, having that as an outlet was great for us during lockdown, because it was something that we had, you know, we could do monthly. We rotated around, so we all had something we can do in between, like working on music and stuff. And it was just a nice outlet, I think, for us to showcase what we were doing in between that 2-year period of nothingness, really.
Yeah. And there's no coincidence that podcasts suddenly became incredibly popular and loads of people started doing them during that time, really. And I think it was almost like a kind of a test of the endurance of dance music, really, that it didn't have to be in a club environment. It proved what we'd all known all along as fans of it, as creators, as supporters, and people part of the culture, that, you know, it doesn't stop on a Friday night or a Saturday night or anything. It's part of your life 24/7. It's constantly there, and this proved it, because I mean, there was nobody stopped listening to it. People might have sat on like key bangers that they knew were going to tear the club apart and thought, right, I'm going to save that until all of this is over. But you still kind of worked on music. It didn't stop, and it was testament to the power of electronic music, full stop. I think, really, that whole 2-year period, wasn't it?
Yeah, for real. I think, like, we just cracked on, and like, obviously rave music by default is defined to be danced to, so it was kind of difficult, but at the same time, people were just there for the feeling of it, you know. They just wanted those nostalgic, like, feelings to come through. And I guess part of the influence of what we do being that, like, that rave music, that sort of like ecstasy, hands in the air, summer of love sort of vibe, like, that stuff was resonating with people because they missed it. You know, there was that massive, like, even for younger people, they missed going to festivals, going to parties, going to raves, going to clubs. It was like a yearning for it. So I think it, in some ways, like in weird ways, it almost helped the sound, because as soon as we came out of the pandemic, it was just like everyone was just there for it, you know.
Definitely cool. And then how about, I mean, was this the period then where you started talking about actually making a track together? Because again, was that ever even on the cards, really? Or how did the recent release come about?
I think it's quite embarrassing that it took us that long to get to it. You know, we've been friends for 5 years in the Club Glow capacity. We've been friends individually in some sort of circle longer than that. So the fact that it's taken us that long, and we've all worked with each other on tunes, like in some sort of capacity as well, is quite embarrassing. It's taken us 5 years to do it, I think. But
we all live in different cities, though, you know. Yeah. It's hard to coordinate it, and I think most of us prefer working like in the studio together. You know, rather than like sending stems back and forth, it's nice to have that synergy and vibe off each other. So like when we finally actually managed to get some time together, we all like booked in a weekend around Nick's, all bought bits of hardware and just like jammed in the studio, and it was wicked. It was really, really good fun. Like we're trying to do that again, but it's quite hard to coordinate. We're all pretty busy, and to get a date where we can all get together in the studio is pretty difficult, to be honest with you. So
But that makes it even more special then, really, doesn't it? You know, and I imagine, yeah, like you say, just organizing 4 lives and all of the periphery lives, you know, as part of, you know, it's not just 4 individuals, is it? I imagine you've got families and partners and all these other things that we have in life and stuff like that. So to be able to get all 4 of you together, but that sounds amazing, all getting together and having this kind of creative explosion, really. And I wonder if you learned new things about yourselves, which you didn't know before, because you see somebody differently when you start to actually, you know, creatively get involved in that type of level in the studio. Sometimes it doesn't work, even with your best mates. So, you know, did you learn things about each other during the creation of Mosquito and our style?
I think one of the things was that it was really nice to be able, because we hadn't all been in a room making tunes together, so we didn't know how it was going to be. I mean, we've done gigs, we hang out, we all know each other, we know each other intimately. So in many ways, it was just an extension of that. But there was this question, you know, what's it going to be like? Are we just going to be arguing because we don't? But actually, it was totally the opposite. It was like we just went like this. And we all like had our little places or ideas, or we'd all brought things and prepared. So it kind of, to me, it just felt in many ways like effortless and fun. And it was like, I don't know, I mean, I was learning things from the way that, you know, because we all produce, but we all do it differently. We use different equipment. Some of us use different DAWs even. And so, you know, there's another thing about compatibility. How are we going to do it and such like. But yeah, the main thing was that for me, it was just a wonderful time, and it was really kind of inspiring and brilliant, because everything that anyone did, it was like, yeah, that's wicked. Like, I'm feeling that, because like all of us are all on the same page, you know. Okay, we've got different, you know, we're into different stuff or whatever, but ultimately we kind of, there's a lot that we share. And tips and tricks and sounds and things and just studio stuff is, you know, we're all geeks at heart too. So that's another one. Like, oh wow, you do it like that. Cool. What's this plug-in? Like, hang on.
Go on. That's amazing. I'm going to go through each of you now and get your favorite memory of that. And I'm imagining that more than 2 tracks were created, or more than 2 seeds were planted. Because a lot of stuff probably happened post that weekend where you bounced it back and forth and shared ideas and actually finished the tracks off and did the mix down thing. But I imagine more than 2 seeds, more than 2 track ideas came about from that weekend. So starting with you, Louis, what was your kind of standout moment of that kind of next evolution of Club Glow?
What, in the studio session?
Yeah.
Oh man, I think it was when we'd got like the body of the idea of Mosquito rolling. And I can't remember who it was. I think someone like accidentally muted a channel. So it was just like the drums muted off. We just had that big 808 just going, boo. We all just looked at each other and were like, oh, that was sick. And then like we put that in the track. There's a bit where it just breaks down to just the 808 and like the Mosquito sound coming in. And that was a good moment. But like all of us looked at each other and was like, yeah.
Wicked,
yeah,
wicked.
Good.
Go on. How about you, Perry?
Oh, he actually stole my moment, but
No.
He remembers it different to me, because I remember saying, "Hey, we should drop the kick out here," and then when
so it's your idea, okay?
That's how I remember it. That's how I remember it. But I mean, the whole thing was good. Like we got, I think maybe there's 2 other tracks that were like ideas that we got down, and it was just, yeah, I think just the whole being able to jam with each other just in a room was.
That was it, making the tunes together, like all of us with a bit of kit actually having a proper jam, like made it such a fun experience. Yeah. It was really good.
I remember there was a point where it's like Boris was on the keys, Perry was firing samples off a tracker, I was sitting on the floor with a delay pedal, and Louis was making sounds on the Microfreak, and it was just like we're all just at it at the same time. It was nice, you know, like just to vibe with it and jam with it, and then someone just hits record. Yeah, 4 tracks in a weekend is pretty good going, I think.
Yeah, wow. Man. Okay, cool. So there's 2 more tracks then.
Yeah.
in the
On that
old
session, yeah.
I need to listen. I need to listen to them again. I can't remember them. I'm trying to think what are the other two tunes, but we will. There are two other tracks.
What was your standout moment, Boris?
I think for me, actually, it was not just being together, but there was one which was, I think it was Louis brought his Microfreak, which is a synthesizer I'd come across, but had kind of dismissed it for one reason or another. And he brought it and was really enthusiastic about it. So I was like, okay. And then he just started making some sounds with it. You know, he was playing us some patches that he kind of created, and suddenly I was just blown away. It was like, wow, wow, okay. And it really made me think differently about the nature of equipment and how I look at it. It's not just, you know, I've got my preferences or whatever, but don't judge a book by its cover, I suppose was what it was. But other than that, yeah, that moment with Mosquito when Perry's like, drop the kick, and we're all just like, and that was
brilliant.
Yeah. And just
Brilliant.
the whole being in a room together and just being really happy with the results and it all going really well.
Yeah, so this must have all happened like after, was it relatively fresh after the lockdown? So you had that additional buzz of seeing each other and the real life connections and all the rest of it? Or was it a bit more? Because I mean, we have been out of that for a year now, so that's kind of, you know, it could have happened more recently than that.
I think it was November, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. But we'd come out of lockdown, we'd had a party at the Cause where we did like a room takeover. Then we had, I think, a party in Leeds, which was like the first weekend that clubs reopened. Then we had our second party, and then we've had like a few bookings as Club Glow as well. So we've been seeing each other a lot more frequently than we've ever done. So I think there was even just an underlying desire to like, look, we're always together now. Let's make some music. So yeah, I think coming out of lockdown as we did, and going into sort of the fire of all these gigs together, and putting on the parties, and you know, working more on the radio and the label and stuff. I think it just built up this desire to work more together, and the only output that we hadn't done was working collectively on a track together. So again, it was a natural progression, I think, of things rather than, you know, forcing it to happen.
That's the only way it should really happen. And it sounds like, you know, all of these years before, the way that you've communicated and worked together, that it was the kind of perfect storm, really. And everything else that you've been through, it was the perfect storm for it to happen again, you know, for it to happen in that type of way, really, wasn't it?
Definitely. I think, like I say, if we'd started 5 years ago, okay, we need a record label to put out vinyl, tapes, radio show, parties, all this, we would have burnt out within 6 months, you know, and we'd be broke probably. So it's so I think the fact that we've done it how we've done it has sort of helped us just, you know, keep it interesting, keep it moving, keep it developing, and yeah, you know, there's still plans for future stuff as well, you know, so we're just taking it step by step and not rushing it.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And it sounds like, you know, there's, in a way, then you're still that kind of, you know, there's still, this is the first chapter really, and there's still so much more that you want to do. And having that time and that space and not hurrying things gives you time to do all of the other things that you do as solo artists as well, which all feeds back into Club Glow, I would imagine. If you were in each other's pockets and trying to get everything out all at the same time and have that intensity and just sticking exclusively to Club Glow, then again, you wouldn't have that same level of excitement because you're not doing other things and creating, you know, kind of fulfilling yourselves creatively in other ways, doing everything else that you guys do.
Well, yeah. I think one of the things that has been a big influence in how we've run the label is we've all had experiences with other labels, and we've tried to take the best from them. And even, you know, not even labels that we've worked with, but some that we admire, we take the best from them, and the stuff that we don't like, we don't do as well. You know, we try and approach things how we would want to work with a label. And because of that, it's given us a lot of peace of mind when we're doing label stuff. And with it being our own music, you know, there's a lot more, I guess, emphasis and a lot more sort of energy that we're all putting in collectively because we all want our records to succeed. You know, whether it's Nick's record or Boris's or Louis or mine, like we all want it to do the best that it can because it's representing our label and who we are, and you know, it's representing our friends. So, you know, we're just trying to push it the best we can.
I think that's beautiful.
We've got this phrase. I think I threw it in, because when we were discussing Club Glow, we've talked about the fact that we want to continue doing solo stuff because it's very helpful to everything. And the phrase is, the tide raises all the boats, right? And so it's like anything that any one of us does helps Club Glow. So any release that we have externally, whether or not it be Borai or my label or it be Denham Audio, releases, it all feeds back. And we encourage that, I think. And likewise, that we encourage, if Louis got a track out on another label, then yeah, let's promote it. Let's talk about it, because again, it's going to be wicked. I'm going to want it.
No, I think that's brilliant. And this taps back into another original kind of spirit and a founding kind of motif or tradition. Yeah, tradition of rave culture is collectives. Like, kind of, and especially in drum and bass, like collectives where everything, and you look at like the Bristol sound and stuff like that, and V and Virus and all of these kind of crews, strength in numbers, people bouncing off each other, and that kind of sense of friendly competition and keeping each other on their toes and gassing each other up, and all of that is so important a part of this culture. And I think, I'm going to conclude on this. I think that's what you guys represent, and is one of the most exciting things for me about seeing what you guys do, really.
And the roster's growing as well. Like, there's us four. We've got Kessler and AK. That was the last tape we put out. We've got the fourth tape coming probably in a couple of months with 2 external artists. We've got a bunch of sort of close peers that play a lot of our parties that we put on as well, like Ambient Babe Station, Meltdown, Triple Point, Angel Delight, Decibella. So like, there's people that are involved and under the Club Glow umbrella outside of just us four. It's growing as we grow, and it keeps it moving. Don't want us four playing every party for the foreseeable. We want to bring other people in and sort of showcase other people that didn't have a platform like we do.
Yeah, I think it's important to just note like that this isn't a label. It's not like us four. It's not just a collective. It's kind of undefinable in what it is. It's like the music, it's the stuff we're doing together, it's our label, it's the artwork, it's the nights. It's just this, like, I don't know, it's just kind of a way of us all doing everything we've always wanted to do with music and chucking a name over it to just contain it. But like, half of it's happened without our plans. Like, we didn't even plan to like go out and do these 4-way back-to-backs like we do, but we do. And it's great and we love it. But yeah, like there's other people involved in the peripherals, and it's just this whole ever evolving, mutating thing, which is what's so nice about it.
I think going back to what you were saying about collectives, I've honestly taken a lot of inspiration from my world. I grew up in the drum and bass world, and I'm from Bristol. So, Full Cycle, Roughneck Ting. But if you look at all of the big labels within dance music, a lot of them have come out of collectives. So I'm in my own time, I'm doing a lot of what have they done? That could be what we could do, or we could do it in a different way. Like, how did they approach, 4 people all working together and the pitfalls of that. And yeah, I love the collective. I love the fact that it is undefinable, like Nick said. I love the fact that there are no boundaries. It can be a label, it can be a club night, it can be all of us 4 in the studio, or it can just be 2 of us or one of us.
And it can be any genre, it can be any tempo as well, as you proved with all of your output. It can be anything. It's that complete lack of boundaries, really, this kind of sonic rave anarchy, if you like, which is really, really exciting. You can take it anywhere. You can
Club Glow is freedom.
Brilliant. Louis, you've got the final say in the matter here.
Oh, I don't know, I just feel like lucky to be part of the collective. Like, it's good to see how the other boys operate on their various projects they do, and it definitely motivates me. Like, we're always sharing tracks and I'm like, oh shit, man, like, look what like Nick's done. Oh man, I need to like step up my game. I need to get back in the studio. And do you know what I mean? I think it has helped all of us push ourselves that little bit further. Do you know what I mean? Like, as you were saying, a friendly competition. It's definitely helped me on a personal level, and just that these guys inspire me all the time to try and push a bit harder and do better, So yeah, it's wicked. I love being part of the collective.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. And a beautiful way to finish off. So yeah, Perry, Nick, Boris, Louis, thank you so much for joining me on One More Thing. It's been an awesome conversation. That's been the origin story and the future and everything that Club Glow represents. So yeah, thank you for joining me. And thank you to everybody who's watched this. Big up.
Yeah, cheers.
Thank you.
One more thing. One more thing.